Okay, about the Russian Ukraine.
Mm,
This drone truck attack, that deep
yeah.
inside Russia, is it got lots of attention, as you can imagine. What is your take on that? It is a clever attack, but does it change anything?
It changes absolutely nothing. It was more again an exercise in public relations. Apparently, they managed to destroy three bombers, and we're talking about bombers
Mhm.
that were designed in Joseph Stalin's time. I mean, we're talking about the first Tupolev 95 flew in 1952. So they are mighty and splendid aircraft. I mean, you can look at them. I've seen them, and
Mhm.
you see them fly. They are extraordinary machines, and they still have the world's most powerful turbofan engine, and they make an incredible noise. You can hear them for miles. I mean, it's which already, of course, makes them rather inefficient as bombers. Just to say, I mean, they're certainly not stealthy, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, they are magnificent machines, but they are completely antiquated. So the Russians, anyway, are busy building more advanced bombers. They seem to have gone more down the supersonic route than the stealth route. So supposedly they have a
Mhm.
stealth bomber being developed. But anyway, whatever. So three of these bombers, of which the Russians have supposedly around 60, and they have been destroyed. A couple of others have been damaged. It's not going to do anything in terms of Russia's military capabilities. It's not going to affect the balance of power between Russia and the United States. It was, as you said, a very clever operation, but it is one that will have compromised agent networks that Ukraine has established inside Russia because you needed to do this. You inevitably are going to compromise your networks in order to do this, and it's not going to change the course of the war, and it's not going to change the strategic balance. It is very much part of what Ukraine does nowadays, which is that it tries to divert attention away from military defeats on the battlefronts by engaging in these public relations exercises, which is what this all ultimately was. Attacks on the railway bridge, the
Mhm.
bridge between Russia and Crimea, is another example.
Mhm.
Um, None of these things ultimately change the overall picture, and they don't change the Russian approach to the war or is Russia's diplomatic strategy.
But these attacks, it also reminds me a little bit like the pager attack, that Israel did.
Yeah.
I think these
Mm.
these attacks they blurry the lines between war zone and the home front. Also, blurry the lines between war and terror attacks, isn't it? So that in that sense, it's kind of
Oh
scary
yeah.
in a way, don't you think?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I mean, can I just say something? I mean, you're completely right because I mean, you're using civilian trucks and vehicles
Hmm.
to conduct attacks. Apparently, some of the drivers of these trucks weren't aware of what it was that they were carrying, which is already, and one of them was murdered, it seems,
Hmm.
which I mean does elevate the the thing to some extent into a terror attack. But it may surprise people in China to know that the attack that gained an awful lot more attention in Russia was two attacks that the Ukrainians carried out against the Russian railway system. And they blew up
Hmm.
two bridges. And they blew up one bridge as a civilian train was crossing and several I mean, and that was a civilian train with
Hmm.
civilians in it, and some people were killed, and other people were injured, and the Russians are treating that as a terrorist attack, which
Hmm.
it was.
Yeah.
If you do this kind of thing, this kind of sabotage operations, I mean, you always run the risk of drifting into terrorist attacks, and this some of these are now becoming straightforward terrorist attacks, and the West says nothing. It
Yeah.
just sits back. I was reading a long article about this in the media, in the Russian media, a long article about how the Ukrainians are able to carry out assassinations and murders and blow up trains and
Hmm.
kill civilians inside Russia, and no one ever says
Mhm.
anything about it in the West. There's never any criticism, there's never any comment about how it was wrong or anything of that sort.
They were also trying to assassinate Putin, right? He was flying, and then they sent a massive
Mm.
drones trying to
Yeah,
attack his
yeah,
plane, right? But they need to understand if they were successful, that would be the end of Ukraine. Do they understand that?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that,
No, I don't think. I don't think they do. I think one of the fundamental problems with the Ukrainians is that they are addicted to this kind of thing, and once you become addicted to it, it becomes compulsive. I think, and I'm going to say this, I think they learned it from the British, by the way, who are also addicted to this kind of thing. They have been ever since the Second World War. They think that, asymmetric war, killing Russian leaders, killing Russian generals. The Russians believe, and I'm sure they're right, by the way, that it was the Ukrainians who were behind the attack on the rock concert that took place last year,
oh,
this time last year. So
yeah.
all of this um, um, is straightforward terrorism. And of course, the Russians, as they always do, they're very, very methodical. They're making careful records of all of this. And one day they will come after all of these people. Of that, I have absolutely no doubt.
Yeah. I don't think they understand the problem is not Putin, right? If Putin, let's say, stepped down today, a new president, maybe even more aggressive, I don't think they understand that.
Oh,
But
a new president would be a lot more aggressive. I mean, I remember, bear in mind, I was in Russia just
mm,
2 weeks ago, and I can absolutely say that if there is criticism of the Russian government at all, even from lawyers, and
mm,
I attended a conference of lawyers, civilians, if there is criticism of the Russian government at all, it is that it is not being tough enough.
mhm. Yeah, when I was talking to some people here, taxi drivers, if there are any criticism to the Chinese government is why they haven't taken back Taiwan already, militarily.
Yeah,
There is
yeah,
very
yeah,
few people talking about a peaceful reunification. I
yeah.
think Xi Jinping probably belong to the minorities here.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, you see, these are the leaders.
Yeah.
Leaders have to be more careful and
Mhm.
prudent. I mean, it's a point that I'm always. I mean, I always getting people coming along and telling me, why is Putin so soft?
Mhm.
Why doesn't he react? Why don't, I haven't had it with Xi Jinping because obviously I don't cover China so much.
Mhm.
But I mean, thank God they
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah,
Thank God these leaders are as careful and as serious and as disciplined in their approach to things
yeah,
as they are. Just
yeah.
imagine if they were all like Biden or Trump. I mean, where would we be? Probably dead by now.
Well, the other thing is Europeans they are now lifting Russians' restrictions on long-range weapons, and Germany is building up
Yeah,
its military. UK is now boosting its military spending. No wonder there's talking online, hashtag World War III right now. I mean,
yeah,
like you said, thank God that Putin is a person that have self-control, right? Isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Europeans are the ones who are escalating. They don't seem to care much, right?
Yes. No. No. I mean, it's becoming the organizing principle in European politics. You, you don't have much else. I mean, our economies are all in bad ways,
Hmm.
some more so than others, but Germany's economy is in very bad shape, and I know Germany quite well. Britain's economy, which of course I know very well, is in very, very bad shape. Governments are unpopular. They're feeling that their support amongst the populations that they govern is slipping.
Hmm.
So, how do they hold everything together? They talk about the threat from the east. They talk about, Moscow's long arm that is going to
Hmm.
come and take over Edinburgh, I suppose, or Sheffield. I'm not quite sure why the Russians would want to go there, but anyway, there's this endless narrative being put together, and of course, you can use it to attack any political leader who is in some ways a dissident political leader, because you say you're being soft on
Hmm.
Russia, you're a Russian apologist, a Putin apologist. They say the same about people who are sympathetic to China. I mean, so it's becoming increasingly, and this is a very dangerous thing, by the way. It's becoming the organizing principle of our politics, and it's more important, in my opinion, than whether the actual rearmament even happens. The British government has released a 35,000 word strategic defense review. 35,000 is not that long, by the way.
Hmm.
I've read it. It's unbelievably vague. It's completely lacking in any real concrete substance. I mean, if you are looking for an actual plan
Hmm.
of how to build up an industrial base, how to build weapons, what kind of weapons you need, there's nothing like that. I mean, Chinese people who would read this would be baffled, I think. This is a defense paper. But what it does do, of course, is amplify all the rhetoric about the threat from Russia. And that's its purpose.
Yeah, and one thing that the Chinese media interpreted Macron's speech at the Shangri-La Dialogue is because he encountered so much trouble domestically, right? And of course, he's losing control over African colonies, former colonies.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like doesn't know what to do. And then one thing he could do is threatening Asia. Oh, NATO is coming if China, doesn't do this and that. Which actually, I think what the Asian countries see is, okay, you guys from the West, you like wars and conflict. You're now talking about bring them to Asia, right? To destabilize Asia. It's not enough you have wars in Europe, you want to destabilize Asia. And that's how it was perceived, by Macron's speech was perceived. I think not just in China, but also in ASEAN countries as well. So,
I, I have absolutely no doubt about this at all. I mean, I think people in Asia are looking at all of this with horror. They're saying, the French are coming along and they're going to start organizing military things here. I mean, they made such a complete mess of relations, of the situation in Europe. And they want to export all their pathologies and their obsessions and their anger and their hatred to us. We're trying to build our societies and build our industries and increase the wealth and prosperity and well-being of our people. I think it's going to be very unwelcome in Asia altogether. I think Asian people are going to be absolutely bewildered by it. But there it is. I come back to what I said many times about the fundamental difference between Europeans and Asians. European states, including the Americans, who are a kind of European state,
mhm,
are obsessed with power.
mhm.
Power is what drives them, and it was military power more than anything else.
Um,